Revenge brought them together. Secrets could tear them apart. And love? Love might just destroy them both. It had dawned on Sullivan at the last minute that Catherine could be having a panic attack, and he needed to be sure she was safe. But when he got to the park, she was nowhere to be found. His eyes darkened with disappointment, thinking he had assumed wrongly. But just as he turned, his eyes caught a quick movement. On getting closer, something strange was there. He was trying to observe it more when he paused. Oh my God! Catherine! She was unresponsive. He reached out to touch her. With utmost speed, he took his hand off her shoulder like someone who had touched a naked wire. She was burning up with fever. Sullivan took off his suit jacket, covered Catherine, and lifted her into his arms, right inside his car. The car tires screeched, and the driver rode off. He reached out to his phone and dialed his doctor's number. "Meet me at my penthouse. It's an emergency." They arrived at the penthouse, and Sullivan lay Catherine gently on his bed, awaiting the doctor's arrival. At exactly 9:30 p.m., Dr. Lancelot Gregg, a private physician, strode into the penthouse. Sullivan hurriedly led the way to his bedroom. Dr. Lancelot examined Catherine with his professional but curious gaze and wrote on his notepad while he turned to look at Sullivan. "Does she have a history of anxiety?" Sullivan responded. He wasn't sure. The doctor diagnosed Catherine with a panic attack, but then he threw another question at Sullivan. "Do you have an idea of what could have triggered it?" Sullivan shook his head. The doctor cast a glance at him, hesitating, but then he dropped a shocking revelation. Catherine panicked as a reaction to something she desires but doesn't understand. Sullivan frowned, contemplating in his head what the doctor meant, and suddenly it struck. Catherine was still a virgin. The doctor sedated her and assured Sullivan she would be better once she woke up. By the time Catherine woke up, Sullivan had a new perspective on her, and he was willing to do anything to please her and make her feel safe. As days rolled into months, Catherine and Sullivan got closer. Not a day passed by without a series of calls being exchanged between them. Their connection deepened. The way she felt safe with Sullivan, she had never felt that way before, and he was so intentional about her. He listened to her unspoken words and spoiled her silly with gifts each week. What started as a revenge mission spiraled into an uncontrollable entanglement, but Catherine was never distracted. Her mind was still hooked on her mission until the tables turned in the wrong direction. Catherine was settling into her usual Saturday evening routine, oversized hoodie, popcorn in hand, and her favorite television show already playing. Suddenly, a rattled, sharp knock hit on her door. She stood up. Her eyes sprang out in alarm. She wasn't expecting anyone. Catherine was about to swirl the doorknob when the knock came again, this time followed by a familiar voice. "Open up, Kathy." Her heart jumped. That voice. It couldn't be. She flung the door open, and there he was, Kelvin, grinning like he hadn't just ghosted the country for 2 months. She welcomed him in, and he surprised her with a lacrosse game ticket for the night. Without wasting time, she prepared and they headed out. But then she forgot her phone inside her apartment and quickly ran in to get it. As she stepped out, a devastating sly smile spread on her face as she walked on to join Kelvin in his car. The game lasted for 1 hour, after which they strolled into a small, tucked-away coffee shop which no one seemed to notice. The atmosphere was scented with roasted beans, which clung to the air like comfort. They ordered their favorite coffee brew, latte and cappuccino. As they waited for their order, they drowned in company gossip, roaring in laughter. Their orders were served, and they sipped on their coffee quietly before heading for the road. By 10:30 p.m., Kelvin stopped his car in front of Catherine's apartment. She smiled and waved at him as he drove off. Catherine stepped inside her apartment and felt its displacement. A strange unease prickled at her skin. The apartment was too still, and its silence was heavy, A needle dropped on the floor right now would be loud enough for a deaf man. A lamp flickered in the corner, and its faint light cast shadows over the chaos. Someone had burgled her home. Her laptop was gone. The cash she had stacked in her drawer was also taken, and her jewelry box, which was placed on the dresser table, was nowhere to be found. She brought out her phone to dial a number. Her gut prompted her to call Sullivan, and in one ring, he picked up. In less than 30 minutes, a car arrived in front of her apartment. She turned, and it was Sullivan. A huge relief washed over her. He was a sight for sore eyes. In a swift move, he swung her into his arms in a bear hug, and she melted right away, releasing all the tension and fears built up inside her. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice suddenly urgent. "Were you hurt?" "No, I'm fine." Sullivan brought out his phone and dialed 911. Shortly after the cops arrived, Sullivan couldn't bear to leave Catherine all by herself, so he took her home. By the time she woke up, Sullivan was right beside her, fully awake, but before she could freshen up. Sullivan had played himself into her hand. He pleaded for Catherine to start living with him. Her heart jumped as they leaped for joy. Her plan worked. Her home was never burgled. She orchestrated the break-in herself. This would help her nail him faster. Sullivan had no idea his request was suicidal. Catherine feigned resistance, telling Sullivan it's not right to start living with him. He became more persuasive, and eventually she stylishly agreed. In her first month of moving into his penthouse, she observed every room, every pathway, every nook and cranny, taking note of how the penthouse was run. On that particular night, when the penthouse was quiet and Sullivan's breathing echoed faintly in the room, Catherine slipped out of bed. Her bare feet made no sound against the marble floor as she found her way into Sullivan's private study. She turned to switch on the light, but stopped herself and pulled out her phone, turning on the torchlight instead. Unknown to Sullivan, she had memorized his password. She punched in the code to his safe effortlessly. The same numbers he thought she hadn't noticed when he tapped them in absent-mindedly while receiving a phone call. Her heart jumped as the safe clicked open. She looked inside and froze. There were wads of cash, plenty of them. Catherine felt there should be more than just cash inside. Then she squinted and looked closer behind the bundles. That's when she saw a black-wrapped folder. Quickly, she picked it up and started unwrapping it. Inside were flash drives, hard disks, and documents. She was checking them one after another when suddenly she heard the soft click of the door. Her eyes popped out of their sockets.